Welcome to WholeCEO with Lisa G. I'm the best-selling author of The Boss Weight Loss. I'm bringing you the top tips to be unstoppable. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to actually pull up a chair with today's top experts in mindset, weight loss, business, and more. Learn our top tips so that you can have more energy, be fit and resilient, feel unstoppable, unshakable, and unbreakable. He's the president of MJP Wealth Advisors, responsible for managing the firm's strategic development and operations, a member of the Wealth Advisors Investment Committee, developing the firm's investment strategies and portfolios, with a passion for helping clients address all areas of personal finance, including investments, retirement planning, insurance, taxes, education planning. He truly creates a comprehensive financial plan, taking the time to learn about his clients' lives, families, and be present when they need him. General Securities Principal, holding Series 7, 24, 51, 63, and 65 securities registrations, as well as life and health insurance licenses, and a CPA in the state of Connecticut, holds a chartered global management and is accredited by the investment fiduciary designation with over 25 years of experience in the finance, accounting industries, formerly with Xerox, a VC firm, a Big Four public accounting firm. He's established himself as a trusted wealth advisor. For the past 5 years, he's been recognized on the Forbes Best in State Wealth Advisors, which highlights the top wealth advisors across the country, named Best Financial Advisor at Hartford Readers Poll, and Best Financial Advisor in the Wilton Magazine Reader's Choice Award for 3 years. He's been a guest contributor and provided commentary to numerous media outlets such as Bloomberg, Barron's, Fox Business, CNBC, Yahoo Finance, The Street, Reuters, NBC News, Washington Post, and a member of several advisory panels. I'd like to welcome to the show Brian Vendig.
Thank you, Lisa. Sorry you had to repeat all that.
I did my best. It's a mouthful, but I didn't want to ignore any of your numerous accolades, and just tell our audience about who we're up against here. And I want to talk about, I know you're getting calls from your clients with all the uncertainty we're all dealing with about reducing anxiety, concern, or stress, that by focusing on planning that you can control. And I want to talk about planning for the future goals and not getting caught up in all this current anxiety and stress.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. I think the key, from the way that, we try to engage with clients is we very much believe in education and empowerment. And I think when things happen, and sometimes even when the months in the calendar year changes, people have a natural ability to reflect and take a step back and kind of, with the expression, you take stock in yourself, so to speak, and
Right.
you recognize that there's things that are out there that we can never control, right? We can't control right now what's going on with headline inflation. There's an unfortunate war in the Ukraine that, someone started back on February 24th that, millions and billions of people around the world are saying, I wish that never happened. But for the things that we can control are the things that are based on the choices that we make.
Right.
And thinking about what some of those choices are. So I would say that in this environment, in light of, inflation, uncertainty about the economy, things going on in the labor market, and people trying to figure out, I think culturally, do they work to live or live to work, kind of trying to move through this pandemic world, you have to say to yourself, what are the things that you value?
Right.
And it's not necessarily financial things.
Right.
And when you come up with that script, so to speak, to say, these are the things that are important to me, my household, my family, from a value statement perspective, things that I want to get out of my day. Then you take a look and you take a look at your income level, you take a look at your expenses, you take a look at what you spend, and then you take a look at how you save your money. And if you're not saving enough, then how can you make positive changes? And I think when you put two and two together, and that might be obviously from a biased perspective where someone like me comes in, you can help to bring forward what are those choices that I should be doing with the time that I have.
Right.
And that's the education aspect. The empowering part of it is actually being able to push back on the environment and create that productive change. Now, the one thing I'll say is we all have these wonderful smartphone devices, right, Lisa, that
Right.
give us information instantaneously. Exactly. Well, I think the downside of this environment that we live in with a high velocity of information that's always coming at us and buttons that we can use to take advantage of getting packages delivered at home or setting up appointments or staying informed is that you wish these empowering things can happen overnight. And unfortunately, it takes time, but
Right.
putting together little pieces along the way to then create that plan and then make that plan part of your behavior and doing that on a consistent basis, almost like a workout routine, in a way, starts to say, you know what, as much as I hear about the craziness on the internet or on my phone or in the papers or what I hear going on outside my windows, at least I am controlling some of these things. And I think it helps to reduce the temperature. I think it helps to reduce the anxiety because then you feel like you're getting something out of either your financial plan or, like I said, that value statement to say, what do I want out of my day?
Well, there's so much to unpack there. I love the way you start with reducing anxiety and stress by having a plan that is based on our values and controlling the controllables and not trying to push the ocean, so to speak, because there's so much that's happened in these uncertain times that we cannot control. So I love how you can manage stress by getting to people's core values. Do you have them create a value statement or mission statement based on what they want and how to get there?
I think it comes through a lot of conversations and collaboration, just like you work with your clients on. So
Right.
I think it starts with let's take a picture view of all the assets in the household, all the liabilities that exist in the household, how much you make and how much you spend, because
Right.
that's one aspect. Because sometimes certain situations have caused people to be in certain scenarios. And the
Right.
question is, do you like those scenarios or do we need to create change, productive change? And I think once you understand your financial picture, then you can relate it to, well, what are you doing during the day? Let's talk about your job. Let's talk about, do you have children? Let's talk about, are you happy in renting or do you want to own? Or do you think it's time to move on to another property? What are some of these things that keep coming up on an ongoing basis that you might not have addressed? Then I think it's also talking about just culturally what's going on in the country. How have you been impacted by some of the social justice or some of the political news? How have you been impacted by the pandemic? Did you move away and start to work from home and now you're being asked to come back to the office? Or do you have flexibility to still be on a hybrid schedule based on some of these choices that you're making? And so I think, it's being cognizant that we are in an environment that is going through a rebalance, which I know is a term that most people usually think about for their investing accounts or their portfolios. But
Yeah.
I think bigger picture, Lisa, we're going through a societal rebalance.
Indeed.
And people are trying to figure out these paths. So now is a great time before you get to the end of the year in 2022, let's start thinking about 2023 and mapping those things out if that makes sense in the way I'm articulating it.
To me, it makes perfect sense because, as you said, it equates to coaching, similar but totally different. At the same time, the method where I'm coaching someone is finding out what are their goals, aligning those to their values and what really matters, And then you can do strategic planning from there. Once you know the what and the why and the way you hold your people, like get to know them so well. So you get to know what really matters to them. And that can take away a lot of this current fear that's driven by the media, and get focused on the controllables about what you can control. And then do you give them action plans the way I would with coaching, to put in their calendar of like, this is what you're doing on this week, and hold them accountable?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say it a little bit different in a way,
Yeah.
but the spirit of the process is the same, in the sense that when we start to figure out, the facts and the circumstances, and we have a better mutual understanding of what is that picture that we're looking at on the wall, and now what is the picture that we want to repaint or redesign for the future, you have to then create steps to kind of go through a process. And
Right.
I think from my standpoint, having a background in investing, finance, and accounting, and tax planning, and estate planning, et cetera, those are all process-oriented topics. And to be successful, you have to follow a process. So we create mutual, it's not dictated, it's mutual agreements of, these are the things that I can work on this month. Then these are the things that we should check back in on in a couple months, because again, you don't do this all necessarily in one day. There's also things that we'll learn about through the process, where we might
Right.
discover, here's a tax benefit that we might not have uncovered based on what we were doing before. Well, now we can do this now. And maybe that tax benefit doesn't show up until you file your return April of next year, but at least that's coming. And I think the other part of it too is, what are some of the other professional service providers that you work with? What are some of the other subscription services you spend money on? Are those the right cost-effective services that you need, or is there another option that might save you money, or you consolidate to make life a little easier? So I think there's a lot of approaches to this, some that the client can implement, but then I think by having periodic, touch-ins, whether those are over email, whether those are monthly, setting up more formally, deep, comprehensive review meetings, everyone's needs are a little different. You just got to set up the right cadence so that both parties feel there's collaboration and coordination. And I believe from that type of process comes the results, which you might call, and others, the accountability for following through.
Yes, I'm all about holding people to the highest level of accountability. And I love the way that we have to also take personal responsibility. Like if we found ourselves here not saving enough money, or with more debt than we like, and paying too much money on services, that's sort of where I'm at with my business right now. I'm looking at, what am I overspending on, and why is that not going to me and savings? So I love sitting down and talking to you, an expert for 25 years. And could we just talk about understanding risks so people can align their action, their mindset, and their environment to comprehend the risks that we have in our life? And like I'm saying, just own it, like own. All right, so now we're here. And from a complete ownership, then you can take aligned action. So let's get into risk a little bit.
Sure. So in my profession, to start with, usually risk is defined in two general categories. It could be investment portfolio risk, meaning how much are you willing to risk as part of your portfolio or your investments to get an expected future return in the future. And depending on what the objectives are, and depending on how long that investment strategy is supposed to work for you, we normally define with our clients what are the right type of investments to achieve those objectives. However, risk can also be the things that you're not thinking about, the what can go wrongs that come up in life. And how have we managed those risks? Meaning, do we have the right directives put in place if someone was to pass away to protect the family with a will and or estate plan, or the right insurance policy? Or does a spouse or a friend or a family member know how to get access to your information to help in case an accident happens? Or who do I call, right? So just setting up a little bit of those response plans or disaster recovery plans, I think, are important. That's another type of risk that we try to help people through and understand. And look, going through a pandemic, we reevaluated our health, right? And so
Right.
thinking about how health changes over time, well, that's a risk. So what are things that you can do now to protect your health? And what are other things that you might be able to do in case health changes in the future, depending on where you might be in life or at a certain income level? So I think those are some of the risks that I would say that we that usually come up from our wealth management and wealth planning approach. But I think very similar to your role in kind of coaching and working with clients, there's similar type of risks. They're just defined a little differently when you put together a strategic plan for someone. So it's I think it's the point of just trying to make sure, if we go back to the beginning part of the conversation, is if we can control what we can control, knowing that there's certain variables that are out there, and we have actions and plans around those, then you're actually reducing risk on an overall basis for your life. And if one of those things come up that you can't control, well, the fact that you have a plan, the impacts are still going to be negative, but
Yeah.
they're not going to be as bad as if you didn't have a plan and you had to react 100% to it right off the bat, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I love that health is wealth thinking too, because there's so many things that you can control and so many things obviously you cannot, international pandemic. But unfortunately, sometimes people wait to plan for their health until they have a problem. So you guys shouldn't wait to plan for your investments till there's a problem. And you shouldn't wait to plan for longevity until there's a problem. So I love the fact that you brought up the upside of the pandemic and that something needed to shift. Do you want to close out with any final thoughts about how things are trending into the future because of all this new uncertainty?
Sure. I mean, I think the biggest thing that people are reminded of every day is when they go to the grocery store, they put gas in their truck or their car. They know that year over year, the cost of living has gone up significantly over the last 12 months. We
Correct.
saw inflation going up in the summer of 21. The Ukraine war, which started on February 24th, like I said before, has really exacerbated a lot of those costs because it put constraint on resources as part of this global supply chain that was still trying to recover from the pandemic. So
Right.
I think moving forward, the trends that we're going to see is that we're going to see that this is a great reflective period to try to evaluate where you can find some savings for yourself at home. And if you feel like things have gone a little bit sideways to down because you didn't have the most robust plan, then maybe it's time that you do reach out for a little support to help you through the next year and the following to get back to that point of homeostasis. I would also say, kind of globally, we're seeing that globalization is coming home. So I think we see a lot of companies now rebuilding and retooling domestically. It just takes a lot of time. So I think there's going to be a lot of different opportunities in the labor market moving forward for jobs. And I also think that that's going to create a lot of opportunity for people to get re-educated and retooled if they want to change their career, which again is a productive thing that you can control in this environment moving forward to find other benefits for yourself. So I am optimistic that we're definitely closer to the end of this great rebalance. But unfortunately, I would say as we move into the balance of the year into next year, I still think we have a little bit more to go in getting back to that point of balance and trying to come out of the impacts of the pandemic, and also with our economy probably moving into a softer patch and maybe a recessionary patch in the future, which is why, again, trying to be proactive to have a plan that covers you on multiple levels. This is probably a great period of time for those that need a plan or want to adjust their plan to do so, because I still think we're going to have a little bit of a tough go next year. But then I think as we move forward, we'll get back to a better place probably through the second half of next year into 2024. So we still have a little runway to kind of deal with some of these issues that globally, we're all sharing it.
Well, I feel better already knowing that you have a plan and that you can see the silver linings in this pandemic and the way you call it a rebalancing. Is there any final advice you want to leave us on being unstoppable and getting away from fear into action?
Absolutely. I think this year has shown a lot of investors and a lot of people in the country that there's a lot of variables that are happening all at once that truly are unprecedented. And when we look at things from an academic point of view, with just the history of the financial markets, there are so many fun facts that I can give you that shows that there are anomalies that are happening this year that makes the environment look a lot worse, in our opinion, than it really is. And so one of the things that I would say are actionable, are empowering, is not to overreact, but to just try to put things into the right light. And then as we're talking about, Lisa, is just to say, what are the things I can do next, knowing that these items today are not permanent. We are not going to live with 8% inflation forever. We are not going to live with waiting months for something to show up that you ordered. We're not going to deal with food prices that keep going up every single month when we go to the grocery store. These things will end. So let's get prepared for that in advance. And let's protect ourselves in the short term when we know there's a little bit more time of us just kind of dealing with these inconveniences and some of these issues that we all have as part of society trying to rebalance through this challenging environment.
And also, do you also believe don't buy into all of these like hype on the media that's trying to make it seem worse than it is?
Well, look, I think unfortunately in our society with just the way information flows,
Yes.
probably on average, maybe the media isn't our friend because they're trying to play up stories to grab attention because attention means advertising and attention means profitability. I think at the same point in time, there are several media outlets that I can think of that are still very fair and balanced in the way they report information. And I think, look, if it's hard for someone to filter through the noise, that's why there's people like yourself or my firm that can provide a fair and balanced picture just to put things into the right context, but then also to tailor it back to what does it really mean for you? Because that's one thing that mass media can't do, which is deliver a tailored message that relates perfectly to everything that's going on in your household. And that's why sometimes working with someone independently who's a fiduciary, who's looking out for your best interest, could make sense in these challenging times.
It absolutely makes sense. And thank you so much, Brian Vendig. I know you and I met on LinkedIn. How can people find you?
Oh, thanks for asking, Lisa. Well, people can check us out at MJP, Mary Jane Paul, wealthadvisors.com. Connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or even just look for me on social media on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with new friends, just how we met, and be able to expand the networks and stay in touch.
Well, thanks for being a great guest on WholeCEO with Lisa G. Brian Vendig.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks for coming to WholeCEO with Lisa G. After over 20 years helping people lose weight and get fit, I'm so excited to announce that I found the missing link with my coaching. Message me if you want to learn how to look better, feel better, and go faster with a master. Lisa G at lisagfit.com.